Guess what? Discover's accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. You heard right, 99%. If you don't think so, maybe it's time to face facts. You're stuck in the past. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report. Learn more at discover.com/creditcard.
Gretch, you and I both love Whole Foods Market, and as the weather gets warmer, we want to have some lighter meals. Well, Whole Foods Market has what you're looking for with great everyday prices.
At Whole Foods Market, you can save every day. Look for the yellow low price signs that help you save money without compromising the quality you expect from Whole Foods Market. Find them with their responsibly farmed Atlantic salmon, no antibiotics ever ground beef, and boneless, skinless chicken breasts, plus more throughout the store. Yellow really means savings at Whole Foods Market because their sale signs are also yellow. So basically, whenever you see yellow, you know you're saving money. Save on the best of spring with great everyday prices at Whole Foods Market.
Lemonada.
Hello and welcome to Happier, a podcast where we talk about strategies and suggestions for building happier habits into our everyday lives. This week, we'll talk about a very big decision that can influence our happiness, and I will get very personal. Plus, we have a smorgasbord of interesting responses from listeners to various questions and comments. I'm Gretchen Rubin, a writer who studies happiness, good habits, secrets of adulthood. I'm in my little home office here in New York City, and joining me today from Los Angeles is my sister Elizabeth Kraft, my sister the Sage.
That's me, Elizabeth Kraft, a TV writer and producer living in LA. And Gretch, I can't wait to hear about your big happiness decision. Very exciting.
Well, before we jump in, my book tour is coming up. If you live on the East Coast, the West Coast, or in the Midwest, I may be coming to a city near you for my Secrets of Adulthood book tour. It starts April 1st, 2025. You can find out all the tour details, the pre-order information. You can learn all about the book, Secrets of Adulthood, at happiercast.com/secrets. I really love getting to talk to listeners and readers face to face. So this is something I'm really looking forward to. So I hope I get to meet a lot of people along the way.
Yes. And Gretch, you always get content. You always get ideas from meeting people. So that's fun too.
I do. It's funny. A writer friend of mine said the most important thing you do on your book tour is Q&A, because that's how you know what people are really thinking about. And it's extremely valuable. So that's very true.
Yes.
Okay. So this week's try this at home tip is to get a dog, if that is right for you. This is not the right suggestion for everybody, but this can be a good try this at home for many.
Yes. So Gretchen, this is the very personal thing you were mentioning. So
yes.
Does this make us believe you are getting a dog? Another dog?
Okay. I think people probably suspect the answer from the fact that we're having this conversation. But first I will say I did a poll and 80% of people said that they thought that I should get a dog. I said, what do you think is the worst that could happen? You know, that's sometimes helpful when you're thinking about a big decision. It's like, well, what's the worst that can happen? Yeah. And people had very interesting and often funny responses. One thing that people said was, how is Barnaby going to manage this? Okay, because he's 10 years old. He's been the one dog. We are thinking a lot about that and doing a lot of research into how to make this a really great experience for him. Even from the time he was not even a year old, he's a very dog-oriented dog. I think some dogs don't care that much about other dogs, but Barnaby really loves other dogs, so we're hoping that he'll be super excited.
Yes. And what are some of the other things people mentioned as possible worst scenarios?
Okay, well, this is just some of the comments. Harder work than human babies. You share your home with a tiny, adorable land shark with the sharpest teeth known to man. I remember Barnaby, he chawed up some stuff that I did not think he would be able to. They're like a very mobile, destructive toddler without diapers. And then here, completely different is you could become a puppy-obsessed person who shows pictures of the puppy to everyone. That's right, you could become a tiresome bore. This is a good point. Having a puppy is awful and wonderful. Just surrender to the idea that they will chew up something valuable. That's just a fact. And then also, I want to know about your thoughts about this one. Somebody said, Two dogs act differently together. They operate as a pack and egg each other on. 1 + 1 = 3. What do you say to that?
I think that is true. I think they do egg each other on. And certainly the barking, they egg each other on with barking. But on the other hand, 1 + 1 means they amuse each other.
Right.
Our dogs play together constantly, chase each other, wrestle.
Yeah.
So both are true. It's easier and harder.
Right, exactly. That's interesting. Well, and then everybody wrote down all the good things that would follow, which is just, it's more love. It's more joy, it's more happiness, it's more laughter, it's just more energy in your life. And it must be noted that the research about having a pet, do pets tend to make us happier? There's very clear research and kind of on a number of different levels. One is companionship. We talk often about how relationships are a key to happiness, and owning a dog is a very special companionship. So they will often alleviate loneliness and depression. Having a dog can increase levels of serotonin and dopamine, which are the neurotransmitters associated with happiness and tranquility. They give us physical activity. Dogs need regular exercise, and that encourages owners to get regular exercise, which can give better cardiovascular health and lower blood pressure. For me, walking Barnaby means that I get out into that early morning light every single day. And now that we're in the open door phase, Jamie does the last walk, but often now I'll go with him. It's just part of our new thing. So that's another little bit of exercise for me, as well as time with Jamie and Barnaby. And then, it just gives us social interaction with other people. We're relating to our dog, but often you're chatting with your neighbors, or I know people who have made friends with people at the dog parks, or Elizabeth, you're part of Corgi Nation, and that's a social connection with other people.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, if I see somebody out in the world with a Corgi, I stop them and I say, I have a Corgi, and we'll talk about, do your Corgis bark? Do your Corgis jump on people? Answer's always yes and yes. So, I do get a lot of social interaction from that, and could get more if I tried.
If you were seeking.
For sure.
And so all these ways, and then it's just the love. And I think for us, it's sort of the family adventure of it. It's this thing that we're doing together. When we got Barnaby, it was just this big thing that drew us together. Now, Elizabeth, you astonished me first when you got a dog, because I didn't think you'd get a dog. Remind me how long it was before you got two dogs.
I think it was like 3 to 6 months.
Yeah. So very quickly.
So not long. We had Nacho. We adored him, but we saw how much he likes other dogs.
Yes.
And how he really came to life when there were other dogs around. And so we felt he needed a friend. And we got Daisy. And I will say, from the moment we got Daisy, he has been focused on Daisy. He used to play soccer with us, really was like playing soccer. And the minute Daisy came, he lost complete interest in that. He lost interest in fetch because he really just wants to play with Daisy, which is great. That's what we wanted. The other thing about having two dogs, Gretchen, is it's so fun to watch them together and observe their relationship. It's so sweet to see them lying down together or sitting in the sun together. Or in the morning, Daisy will always go over and like lick Nacho's face to say, hey, dude, get up for breakfast.
Yeah.
Because she's the morning dog of the two of them. So that's another benefit, is just observing their relationship, which I think is what a lot of people love about having two kids or more, is observing them together. So I love that.
Well, this just reminds me of something that's funny about Barnaby. Is it's just funny for me to like see him get an idea. He has this toy that is like his favorite toy. And sometimes you'll just see him like get up and he kind of looks in like, where is that toy? And then he'll go off and then he'll bring it back. You're just like, there he is. He's having a little idea. Or he'll get up and get a drink of water. I'm like, look, he's got will. He's like, what's going on in there? I don't know. There's just something so sweet. Well, so I don't think that there's any debate. I think the fact that we're even having this conversation is sort of giving it away that we are going to get a dog. We just decided, we're going to decide to get a dog.
Can I point out one other benefit, Gretchen?
Ooh, what? Yes.
It's going to draw your children home.
Yes. Oh, yes. It definitely will. It is. They begged for Barnaby, and then they've begged and begged and begged for this dog. And it is part of the empty nest, or open door, as I'm calling it. It is such a cliche. This is right there with travel as one of the things that they recommend, or get a hobby that they recommend that people do. But I can see why, because with every person or life force that comes into a home, you feel that difference. And then when each person leaves, you feel that drop. And so I just feel like we're ready for a little bit of an element of that life force. And it is something that Eliza and Eleanor are so excited about that it just feels like a really good family decision because it's just going to bring that energy that'll be exciting. And it is a ton of responsibility and hassle. And so, of course, for me, because I basically don't like responsibility and hassle, that's where I had to think about the research and think about the future me and think about how I felt about Barnaby and just trust. And also, you know how this is, Elizabeth, where you feel like there's no time, but then something happens and then time just expands.
Mm-hmm.
If you all of a sudden have a new responsibility, somehow you just find time for it. Sometimes you feel like, oh, there is no time, but then you find the time. So anyway, so we're trusting to the future. I do have a little bit of a sense of dread.
Of course.
Yeah. And we won't have the girls here. When we had Barnaby,
right.
Both girls were home to help with the walking and everything. Because when you're in New York City, like, that's a little bit of a thing every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're going to love it. I think you're going to be excited and filled with love for the new dog. And I think all of that will fall away compared to the joy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, Gretchen, you mentioned the open door of it all. How did that fit into your decision making?
Well, of course, I am thinking so much about how is my life changing? What's getting better? What is there more of? What is there less of? On the one hand, we have more freedom, and that's really good. And getting a new dog cuts against the freedom because you have more responsibility, and especially with a young dog. But then on the other hand, it's just more life and more life force and more fun. And so I was like, overall, what do we feel that we want more of? And what do we feel like we want less of? And I can imagine that for another family or another person, they might be like, now that I'm not worried about my kids, I want to be more free. I want to have less responsibility. This would be the wrong thing for them. I was talking to a friend of mine she's divorced. And so her agreement with her ex-husband is the dog travels with the children. And I said, oh, well, maybe would you want to get a dog so you have a dog to keep you company when everybody else is gone? And she said, oh, no. This is great for me because I either have everybody to worry about and that's wonderful, or then I have nobody and I don't have to worry about coming home at all. And so she felt like this way she got the best of both worlds. But I could see how, and we all have to decide what we want and what we want more of and what we want less of. And so again, no tool fits every hand. We all have to figure it out for ourselves. But Jamie's a softie. His love language is physical touch. And Barnaby's a pretty independent dog. He's not the kind of dog that jumps up into your lap or snuggles up to you. And who knows what the personality of this new dog will be. But I think if we had a snugglier dog would be nice, especially for Jamie. So we'll see.
Well, on the open door of it all, Gretchen, I also think your kids leave and then you're looking at their accomplishments or their interests. And it's like, oh, this one's in this club or this one got this internship and this one's doing this. You're kind of focused on what they're doing out in the world. And this is something you're doing.
Yes.
And I think that's important, right? It's like we're still these individual beings who need to evolve and grow. And so this is something you're doing.
Right. You want to have your own adventures and your own atmosphere of growth.
Yes.
Well, let us know what you think of the idea of getting a dog, how getting a dog has worked for you. Might you get a dog in the future? I so appreciate everybody weighing in on this. Once again, it's a lot of responsibility, but I'm sure it'll make us happier. Let us know on social media, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Facebook. Drop us an email at podcast@GretchenRubin.com, or as always, you can go to the show notes. This is happiercast.com/525.
Coming up, we've got a happiness hack that will help you be more productive in a small amount of time. But first, this break.
Elizabeth, after all of the busyness of the holidays, I had a real urge to clear clutter. You know how I am. I really like to have things clear and put away. I definitely love great storage systems. Well, I went to Wayfair. And what I love about Wayfair is that it's so convenient to get anything you need. And one thing I realized really helped me are shelf spinners. So I got 2 shelf spinners. I got this great tabletop set of drawers, which I'm going to use for office supplies, just like those little things that go missing if you put them in a big drawer. They're really attractive. And it was really hard to pick out because I wanted everything. I love storage stuff.
Well, there is something for every style in every home at Wayfair, no matter your space or budget. And they have free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff. They'll even help you set it up. Give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home.
This episode of Happier with Gretchen Rubin is brought to you by Alloy Women's Health. Let's face it, getting older can bring a lot of issues, problems with sleeping, hot flashes, brain fog, weight gain. This is perhaps inevitable, but it's also treatable. Alloy can help you to live your best, healthiest life through menopause and beyond, offering unlimited access to experts and safe, science-backed treatments for your symptoms delivered to your door. Everything is done online, no waiting for an appointment or in line at the pharmacy.
I know so many women who have struggled through menopause, and doctor treatment is extremely helpful. I cannot recommend Alloy enough. Join the 95% of women who tried Alloy and saw relief in the first 2 weeks. Head to myalloy.com/happier and tell them all about your symptoms, and you'll get a fully customized treatment plan. And you'll get $20 off your first order today. Head to myalloy.com/happier and enter code happier to get $20 off your first order.
Okay, Elizabeth, this week's happiness hack is about productivity and podcasts, two things that we are big fans of.
Yes, this comes from Pam. She said, here's a happiness hack that makes me happier and productive. Whenever I have a number of menial tasks to do, I put on a very short podcast and make it a game. How many of these tasks can I finish before the end of the podcast episode? The A Little Happier podcast is one of my go-to pods for this very purpose. In less than 5 minutes, I can make my bed, declutter my side table. The combination of getting started, being entertained, and racing against a clock I love, the podcast, gives me the energy I need to keep going.
First of all, this is pairing. So you pair something that you want to do with something that you love to do. It's gamifying, which is like racing against the clock, which I think is a kind of game that a lot of people like to have. It feels manageable because you know how long these podcasts tend to do it. So you don't feel like it's a big imposition on yourself. If there's a podcast that you like, you do want to keep up with it. So then you're also kind of staying up with the podcast that you love. So I think this is a really fun and great solution.
Yes, I love this idea. A podcast that would be great for this is Side Hustle School, because he does short daily, under 10 minutes.
Yep.
So it could be a perfect thing for this.
Yeah, and they're very upbeat. Yeah, and you would want to have them at the ready so that when you felt like, okay, now I'm ready to knock some tasks off my list, that you'd be ready to do it. So great idea. A new way to listen to podcasts and get things done. That's so fun. It kind of reminds me of our deck episodes. We'll just clear the deck, deck the halls. It's adjacent to that kind of getting things done while listening.
Yes.
And now for a listener roundup. We've got sort of a bunch of different listener responses to various episodes. And so rather than sort them out into different updates and by category, we thought, let's just do it as a smorgasbord. Let's just race through some of these really interesting ideas and observations.
Yes. Gretchen, I have to say, that is a word I don't dare say. I can never pronounce it correctly.
I don't know that I am. Now that you say that, I think I better look it up, but we'll just go with it for now.
Okay. Angela says, I wanted to share some information with you and your listeners about caring for your personal papers, photos, and yes, your photo books. I appreciate Gretchen's method of adding handwritten captions to her photo books. When I am creating a photo book, it is usually the thought of adding captions during the design process that makes the task feel more onerous to me. However, as a library and archives conservator for over 20 years, I can attest to the damage that Sharpies and other so-called permanent inks do to documents and photographs over time. These inks can become very unstable, bleeding through many layers of paper/photographs, causing discoloration or transferring to neighboring pages or items, etc. The same can be true for many types of inks, even those marketed as archival. The best way to label your family papers and photographs is on the reverse side with a soft or medium graphite pencil. Tried, true, simple, and less damaging to artifacts. The Library of Congress and National Archives both have great information on their websites for caring for family collections. What's funny about this, Gretchen, is I can think of so many photos we have from mom and dad's childhood that on the back in pencil have something written on them and it's still intact.
And it hasn't bled to the front.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's really good information. I am extremely deep into my Sharpie approach, but now I know better. Okay, that's excellent. Kaylee wrote, I just listened to your Little Happier episode today about the plaque of the gravestone at the Met and wanted to share a similar experience. Last year I got married, and for our honeymoon, we traveled to Savannah, Georgia, where we explored the Bonaventure Cemetery. Near the end of our visit, we came across a little statue, a small lamb curled up, fast asleep. It was obvious this was a piece to honor a child who passed, and the concept of the little lamb at eternal rest weighed so heavily on my heart, it has had a profound impact on my view of life and the legacy we leave. In the same way the words of the piece at the Met spoke to you, the statue is something I will never forget. The way we can express love for our beloved long after death is a beautiful part of the human experience. Well, that was so moving. I'll post a link to the episode where I talk about the stele that I visit whenever I go to the Met, about the grandmother and the grandchild.
And Shelby says, I recently listened to your episode where you posed the question, do you rotate your plate when you eat? A small question, but interesting.
You and I were interested, and others were also interested. Who knew?
I used to be a server at a fine dining restaurant in Chicago, and when we brought plates of food out to customers, we were always told to rotate the plate so that the meat or the protein of the course was closest to the customer. This way, the meat not only looked bigger visually, but customers could ensure they got what they paid for, especially important for a ribeye or a filet mignon. Of course, customers could rotate their own plates after they were set on the table, but I'm sure many servers across the world received this protein closest training as well.
Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
Interesting. Karen wrote, what a valuable insight that family is often not a fan of what we create. I'm a photographer, and it's always bothered me that my mom isn't a fan. It's almost a cliche that moms will be your fan club, but my mom doesn't follow me on socials, listen to my podcast interviews, or generally comment on or follow what I create. I'm lucky that my husband is a huge fan, as are my dad and stepmom. Anyway, it was a valuable insight to hear that it might be normal if my mom doesn't like my creative career. Well, I'm glad that was useful to hear. I think some people are comforted by hearing that that's just not uncommon.
Yes, it's not just you.
It's not just you.
Rachel says, I'm writing to tell you about a quirky habit pairing with great results. I was listening to an episode of the Happier podcast when someone shared the idea of pairing practicing their balance with brushing their teeth 1 minute on each leg during the 2-minute brushing. I thought it sounded weird, perhaps because I had the frame of mind to pair something you don't like to do with something you do like to do. In this case, it was a pairing of something I automatically do with something that would be good to do. I rejected it as odd and went about the rest of my day. However, later that night, as I brushed my teeth, I felt curious. What would it feel like to balance on one leg while I brushed? I tried it and it felt weird, but I kind of liked it. Taking care of this extra thing that would also help my early onset osteoporosis while I did a boring task. I have tried doing squats in the past while I brushed my teeth, but ended up dribbling toothpaste on my clothes, so that pairing failed. I happen to be in physical therapy and working on my hip strength, so a few months into my brush and balance experiment, I was thrilled when my physical therapist told me there was significant improvement in my balance on both legs. In just 4 minutes a day over 3 months, I decreased my chances of falling significantly. Wow.
Wow. Well, and I like this brush and balance. That's a good name for it. Yeah. That sounds like a thing. I'm going to try that.
I think doctors need to start spreading the word on this.
Brush and balance. Yeah. It seems like maybe it makes your balance a little more challenging. That's probably good. Yeah. Excellent. Allison wrote, your question about how different people eat in a recent episode of More Happier reminded me of the children's book, Bread and Jam for Francis. Oh my gosh. One of my favorite books of all time. Love all the Francis books. Oh, Bread and Jam for Francis is so good. You discussed how some people eat all of one food on their plates before moving on to the next food. In the book, Albert takes a bite of each food, goes around again, and says, I like a nice lunch. By the end of the story, Francis is taking a bite of everything to make it come out even. I have thought of this for years after reading the story to my now teenage sons. I like to eat like Francis, making it all come out even. The description of Albert eating lunch, I think, stands as one of the great masterpieces of describing a satisfying meal. He's got his salt and pepper and the way he lays it out. I'm so happy that she brought up bread and jam for Francis.
I know. Those illustrations, Gretch, are my favorite.
Oh my God. Oh, and the Chompo bar. And don't even get me started.
And finally, Liz said, I loved your idea about bringing people into friendship from your outer circle of acquaintances. A year ago, one of my best friends died suddenly and tragically and far before her time. In fact, today is her Yarzeit, which in Jewish tradition is the anniversary of a person's death. She was one of my rare LA friends who could be counted on to schedule regular social plans, however busy she was. Elizabeth can maybe attest that among working moms in LA and other large geographically challenged cities, I'm sure this quality is rare. I can attest to that. So in the months after her death, when two people from my outer circle started making efforts toward friendship, neither having any idea what I was going through, I felt like it was a gift from my dear friend. One was a colleague who started scheduling workday walks with me in which we didn't talk about work. The other was a new mom on our kids' mountain bike team. She has even become my mountain bike buddy, which is all the more special and valuable because my friend who died was my only friend who would bike with me. Maybe a lesson here is that if people are feeling hesitant or shy about making that first initiative toward friendship, scheduling the walk or coffee or mountain bike ride, they can imagine that the potential new friend really needs someone at that very moment.
I think this is so profound. It's beautiful to think about the old friend and these new friendships being tied in this way. But I also think this is really helpful. Like if you're feeling shy or awkward, because we often do feel uncomfortable to sort of reach out and like, do you want to be my friend? But to think like, yeah, you're doing it because you want a friend, but think about the person on the other side. That person might be so eager to make a friend or really feeling some pain or loss. And so to think it's not just for you and your desire for friendship, everybody is happier with friendship and relationships are key to everyone. And there is research showing that usually people are welcoming of this. We value relationships. And if you feel a liking towards somebody, they probably feel a liking towards you. And so I think that this can be helpful if you're feeling very self-conscious to think, but it's not just for me who will benefit. There's another person who will also benefit from friendship. And so this is just a really beautiful framing of those kinds of encounters, which can be challenging, even though we know they're so worthwhile. Sometimes it's hard to give ourselves that push.
Yes. And I'm glad Liz has a new mountain bike friend. That's wonderful.
The mountain bike buddy. Love it.
Okay, Gretch, coming up, you give yourself a demerit that comes up at least probably once every 2 years. But first, this break.
Are you still quoting 30-year-old movies? Have you said cool beans in the past 90 days? Do you think Discover isn't widely accepted? If this sounds like you, you're stuck in the past. Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. And every time you make a purchase with your card, you automatically earn cash back. Welcome to the now. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/creditcard, based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
For the new year, why not expand your life by listening on Audible? I listen to Audible every single day of my life. It is one of my great joys in life. Explore over 1 million audiobooks, podcasts, and exclusive Audible originals all in one easy app. Tap into your well-being with titles that will inspire and motivate you. You can find insight and expert advice on health, relationships, career, finance, and so much more.
Right now, I'm listening to an audiobook by Dan Pink that I love called The Power of Regret, and it is just giving me so many ideas, and I love that I can listen to it on the go. I love listening and learning just while I'm out and about. So start positive habits and reach the goals you set for yourself. Start listening today. Sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/happier.
Okay, Gretch, we are back with demerits and gold stars, and you're up this week with a happiness demerit.
Okay. So this is the kind of demerit where I screw up, I learn my lesson, I do better, then I forget the lesson, then I screw up again, and then I'm like, oh my goodness, I remember that lesson. Let me never do that again, and then I forget again. Okay. So I work at my desk, I drink coffee all day long. Okay, you know where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
And one day, the other morning, I set down my full cup of coffee on the edge of the desk, just slightly out of balance, and it fell over. And one time I did this and I was working on a laptop and it destroyed my laptop. Like slowly, all the keys stopped working. And so of course I panicked. I jumped up. I have a removable keyboard on my desktop. So I flipped it over so that if there was any liquid, it would drain out. And I was like, and it went all against the wall. It went all over the floor. Fortunately, I do keep a rag in my office because if I spill something. So I'm quickly trying to mop everything up. Some papers got wet, ink bled all over everything. It was a whole to do. And of course it was 6 a.m. So I was like, shocked me awake. Yeah. And the thing that is really annoying about this is not a subtle thing. Yeah. I mean, should you put a cup of coffee anywhere near the edge? No, you should not.
Yeah.
And I even have like a coaster that I have on my desk, like put the cup on the coaster. And I just got sloppy and I wasn't paying attention and I was looking at something in my lap and I just set it down and I felt it hit the surface.
Mm-hmm.
So I let go, not realizing, okay, yeah, half of it was on the surface, but the other half was just hanging out, ready to fall, which it did. And so now I have learned this lesson. We could time it. And I bet 24 months from now, I'll be like, okay, there I went again. But so back to this now, I do know what to do to try to offset the damage. I have the rag. I flipped the keyboard. So it's better than it has been in the past. But I was very annoyed with myself.
Yes.
I had to spend 20 minutes cleaning up a mess that I did not need to make.
We've all done it, Gretch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, but Elizabeth, cheer us up. What's your gold star?
Well, Gretch, I am giving a gold star to Los Angeles because poor Los Angeles has been through it recently. We had the fires, which was just so devastating and led to a lot of conversation about why do we live here? There's so much natural disaster between wildfires, earthquakes. There's the cost of living, is through the roof. The entertainment business is in tumult. What is happening? There's just a lot of negativity about Los Angeles. And then we had a stretch in February of about 5 days at least where it was in the 70s, the low 80s. It was so gorgeous while the rest of the country was experiencing bitter cold, sleet, snow. And I just thought, it just doesn't get better than this. This is the peak. So gold star to Los Angeles for reminding us why we love her so much.
Just the glorious weather.
It's great.
Here's my question to you, Elizabeth. Do you think you stay grateful? This time you really were grateful for the weather, but do you think people start to take it for granted and they just assume, it's always going to be good weather and it doesn't really give them a lift? Or do you think a beautiful day is a beautiful day and if you step outside in a beautiful day, it always gives you a lift? You personally?
Me personally, it always gives me a lift, but I also grew up in the Midwest, so it's always, notable to me.
Right. That it's not incredibly hot or incredibly cold or very icy, rainy.
So I always enjoy it. I'm always happy. I love going to Fryman Canyon and having a blue sky and 72 and a breeze. Nothing makes me happier.
Oh, well, wonderful, beautiful LA. And the resource for this week, there is a new Jumpstart in the Happier app. This week in the Happier app, we're running a Jumpstart on getting organized for spring. Yes, unbelievably, we are heading into spring cleaning season. So you can download the app, or if you're already have the Happier app, you can log in for daily tips and suggestions. That's at thehappierApp.com. And Elizabeth, what are we reading this week? What are you reading?
I am reading Code Girls, the untold story of the American women code breakers of World War II by Liza Mundy.
And I am reading Legendborn by Tracy Dion. And that's it for this episode of Happier. Remember to try this at home. consider getting a dog. Let us know if you tried it and if it worked for you, or maybe you got a dog in the past. How did that work out for you?
Or maybe you need another dog.
Or maybe you need another dog. How many dogs does Sarah have now?
3.
Okay. All right.
Thank you to Chuck and everyone at Lemonada.
So remember to rate us, review us, follow us, and here's your rhyming reminder. If you love the show, leave a review to let everyone know.
Until next week, I'm Elizabeth Kraft.
And I'm Gretchen Rubin. Thanks for joining us. Onward and upward.
Gretchen, of course, now that you're getting a dog, the big question is, what is the dog's name going to be?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Now, we still remember all of our long debates before we got to Barnaby. It's fun to think about dog names. It's like band names. They're just fun to think about.
Yes. I can't wait to hear.
It's a flourishing debate. From the Onward Project.